It's Real Talk, Episode 20, Franchise Foundations Part 2. Which sequel will score the highest today? Sid the Cinema Sloth yells, "On your left," when he swings through to review Captain America, the Winter Soldier. From Charlie's Chicks and Southern Lighting and Grip, my old buddy Charlie Harold debuts to score Babe 2, Pig in the City. And VFX production manager Abby White also debuts to grade The Empire Strikes Back. Now quick, like this episode and subscribe, or Lando will hand you over to the Empire.
Real Talk is powered by Real Digital. If you work for a brand or agency producing content, keep it real by setting up a consultation at www.realdigital.media to see how your next campaign can come in ahead of schedule and under budget.
Whenever anyone is discussing standout MCU films, they always have one thing in common, and that is, although sharing many recognizable faces and characters, the films themselves feel like a departure from the MCU formula. Since my 2014 screening of Winter Soldier, I've always noted it as a standout amongst its contemporaries, but how well does it hit over a decade later? The picture is saturated with gritty fight scenes that celebrate a lack of technology in its more successful offerings, but does consistently fall back on lazy outs with futuristic tech that leaves Nick Fury and others burrowing like Bugs Bunny multiple times to escape impending threats. I believe the reason Captain America Winter Soldier works so well is simple and leans into the MCU's most consistent tropes and finds ways to justify them. The typically drab palette for MCU films of the era seems incredibly appropriate for the military thriller tone, and the rinse and repeat formula of good guy versus bad guy version of good guy works to full effect given the lore of the characters and fairly faithful adaptation of Steve Epting's Winter Soldier design. From two-division UFC champions to one of the greatest icons in Hollywood history, the Winter Soldier is packed with lots to love, and I truly believe if someone can only watch one MCU film, this might be the best choice, because it's as self-contained as any sequel in any franchise. I've called Back to the Jungle a superhero sloth to help me dissect this espionage encore. Sid, I hope that packed elevator on the way up didn't make you too nervous, my friend.
When I saw a bunch of really buff sloths enter, I was a little worried. I don't know.
But then you remembered that Real Talk recently opened that gym, and of course, friends and family of Sid the Cinema Sloth can go, and all of your family has been here working out and getting in much better shape. Look, Sid, you're here again. I'm so happy for that. Last time you were here, we had eggnog. This time we have some shrimp cocktail because we're celebrating, but not so much. You are a sloth, not so much. Can we get you something to drink? Maybe a cocktail. Last time you had some eggnog, which really enhance the scores of Jingle All the Way.
Do you happen to have any champagne?
Well, absolutely, we do.
Oh, that would be great.
Margie, go get a little bubbly for my good friend Sid.
Yeah. Get some for yourself, Margie.
Hey, all right. Well, hey now, Uncle Sid, that's not his call. She's working, all right. When did you see Captain America Winter Soldier for the first time, Sid? That's what we're discussing today here on Franchise Foundations Part 2. You were here, by the way, last time. You helped us talk about Fast and the Furious. So I hope, and I think this is maybe going to be a little bit of a different tone. But yeah, when's the first time you saw this one?
Probably right when it came out on DVD.
This would have been a red box for Sid.
Would have been a red box, probably, yeah. Yeah, I love this movie, man. It's out of all those Marvel movies, the first 10 years, I really like the first Iron Man, and I really like this movie.
And this is such a weird franchise because it's like you have the original Captain America. What is it? The First Avenger, I think it's called.
Yes.
And which is fine. Shout out to a Tommy Lee Jones, who we get a little bit of in there. This is as a sequel, heads and shoulders better. Like completely different era in the studio in terms of what they're making. But by the time you get to the third Captain America, it's not even a Captain America movie anymore. It's just another Avengers movie.
It's an Avengers movie, yeah.
And then the fourth Captain America movie, which I have not seen, you have seen. My understanding is Steve Rogers isn't even in it. So it's a pretty strange franchise in that way. And I mean, to say it peaks here, I think is, I don't know, it's like saying Captain America is from Brooklyn.
But this one really was cool. I mean, unique. It definitely is a standalone. I mean, you don't have to know much about the Marvel universe at all. You could tell somebody Captain America is this guy who's frozen. He's super strong. There's S.H.I.E.L.D. It's this agency, and it's like, and you could be set, and now you're off watching the movie. It really does focus on a lot of spycraft and a lot of gadgets, and I'm not saying not so much in a James Bond way, but just or even like the Bourne series, but it just has a very good spy movie feel to it, as well as still feeling like a superhero movie.
And you mentioned those two franchises that it maybe could have leaned into. This it gave me some like Mission Impossible vibes at times too, where I
Yes,
felt
yeah,
like it was kind of almost like an amalgamation of those three franchises, kind of,
right.
and mixed into the MCU.
It stays tight the whole movie. With twists and turns or different things. I like it a lot. I feel like there's not too many holes in it. Even visually, his outfit, Black Widow, that stands apart. This is such more of a spy movie that, she's got her little Glock 26s and not so much of the batons. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like that they stuck with and they went with kind of like a
grounded.
CIA, yeah, grounded. But there's so much to like about this movie. So, again, is it a perfect movie? It's like, no, but it's a pretty close to perfect movie as a superhero movie is going to get, especially one that is a sequel that is a standalone too.
Well, let's dive into it. You know how it is. First we talk about plot. This is an espionage movie. For those unfamiliar, we start with Captain America, who is, just sort of casually training, hanging out, gets called into a mission where he's supposed to release some, why is it escaping me? Hostages. He's going to release some
Oh, yeah.
hostages, and he finds out mid-mission that Black Widow is kind of on her own mission there, getting some data and information, which he feels kind of compromises what they're doing. They get back and he makes it really clear he's not really down for what Shield is doing. Shortly thereafter, Nick Fury is attacked and it's sort of made very clear that Shield has been compromised. From that point on, the movie is supposed to be a little bit of a so who's on whose side, who can you trust? But it's more of sort of just almost like a buddy cop movie with Black Widow and Steve Rogers as we're learning more about this sort of threat of the Winter Soldier. And the whole movie climaxes in the third act with Shield launching these helicarriers. And we also, right around this time, realize that Shield has been completely compromised and taken over by Hydra. Which is run by Robert Redford. And then we get a big showdown between the Winter Soldier and Captain America at the end, which climaxes in a way where it is actually the Winter Soldier who ends up saving Captain America. And as big of a nutshell as I can cram it in, that's sort of the plot of this movie. And I bring it all up because, like we said before, this is a very self-contained movie.
There was a few things they do in it that are just things that you touched on in the beginning. Your opening, they'll use the tech to cut through the bottom of something, and they've done it. They did it twice. I actually love that they did it twice. I totally, I think the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, they're using it again. They just used it. But then I also realized if they didn't use it, you would be like, why didn't they just use that?
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's no way around it that I wouldn't be like, they had that thing. Why don't they just use that thing? So
Yeah.
I actually like that they used it twice. That's not like, oh yeah, there's just a one-off situation. Like maybe that's how they always get out of cars. But
And concrete, feet and
yeah,
feet of concrete that hold up entire freeways,
right,
hundreds of
right.
tons of traffic at any given time.
Yeah, it did dig deep.
Silently too.
Silently, yeah. But it was glowing blue to the
That's
window.
right.
So
Yeah.
little things were like I love her little electric disc she throws on people.
Black widows. Yeah.
Black Widow, sorry, I said yeah, yeah. But I love that that comes into play later, with taking her,
Yeah.
but she goes to her. Yeah, there's a few things like that in there, little nods to later on that I thought like again, especially relating to with some of the spy craft and stuff like that. That was pretty neat.
The tech is minimal. I'm not.
It is.
It
It
is
is.
for me. It's a very small
Yeah.
critique. I
It's
just what I
oh,
think for me in a movie that
okay.
is seemingly trying to be clever and is really low tech to then kind of create these because again maybe we could talk about it more in visual storytelling, but that car crash scene with Sam Jackson is so intense and so
Yeah,
incredible. I
yeah.
remember seeing that for the first time in the theater. And so for all of that to build to just like I said, he Bugs Bunny's his way out, you just sort of
Oh
go,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
come on, that's a little. I just wanted a better. So if I have a critique, it's only because everything else was kind of at one level, and then it's just like, oh, he's got a pocket knife that is a
Right, right.
lightsaber that can, but he also doesn't then use that to just cut up the Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
just feel
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
like
No, yeah. I well, on the minimal use of the gadgets and electronics. I mean, that kind of reminds me a little bit of how uh the Bond movie From Russia with Love is, where it feels we're like using their resources, using what they have available, which is also a little bit like some of the Mission Impossible movies where when they're running from the people they work for, they don't have access to that. So I kind of dig that it's not just loaded with like Iron Man would have new technology constantly. And I mean it is funny too. It's like you have these three giant things that can pretty much destroy the world and they last for a few minutes
yeah.
before everyone take each one just blows itself up. But then at the same time it's also a great solution. Like, well, how is she going to get rid of them?
Well, it's the Jurassic Park effect. You introduce this thing that seems amazing, and you immediately destroy it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, no, this is too cool for this universe to have. In terms of plot, at the end of the day, this is a movie like I mentioned, is kind of a buddy cop movie. We have the pairing of Black Widow and Steve Rogers, but obviously the whole climax is built around the Winter Soldier and Captain America, who were buds back in the day, back in that World War they fought together.
Oh yeah, I actually like it. I like that he has to try to get through to Bucky, that he's more concerned with trying to get through to Bucky than he even is with saving his own life. I don't mind seeing him also get to walk around with Black Widow because it's a nice way to actually get to know Steve Rogers. And then I guess you also have, Anthony Mackie would be the other person who is like a new friend to him as well. That's interesting too, because you have him trying to like fight or save his old friend while working with his new friend. But
Well, then I'll
yeah,
just ask you, 1 out of 10 on the plot, Sid. I mean, I feel like we've juiced as much as we can out of the plot.
I would give the plot. Let me tell there's something else. I love Frank Grillo, Crossbones, I think. I genuinely think likes Captain America. He actually looks up to him and likes them. And when he sees him in there and he says he's sorry about what happened to Fury, I believe him. I don't think he's bullshitting him. But I like that he likes them. He offers apologies, and he's still gonna fucking try to take them down. You get to every floor of the elevator, it opens up. There's people running, and that could be like, oh my god, like how are the people? But like that's kind of neat. That kind of goes to show the limitless resources he's fighting against. He really is on his own against this giant mass of armed soldiers. And so yeah, let's talk about the plot. What did you say? What am I gonna rate the plot?
That's right, City. 1 out of 10.
I'll give the plot an 8.
That brings us to characters and performances. You were just talking about the
Yeah,
dynamic between Frank Grillo, aka what is that, Brock Rumlow? Am I saying that? That's
yeah,
his
Brock
character's
Rumlow.
name,
I
who
didn't
goes
know.
on to, of course, be the villain Crossbones. Like you said, there's respect. There's respect
Yeah.
between him and Cap, very similar to Nick Fury and Alexander Pierce. There's a real genuine respect between them, even though they're on opposite sides of the coin, as it's put. You could say the same thing about Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson. They're very much two sides of the same coin. So, I think the movie does that really well, where it's always kind of giving you a good balance. What I do think the movie needs, and maybe I could have said this in plot, but I'll bring it up in characters and performances. We obviously have the twist that Robert Redford is the head of Hydra. I do feel like the movie could use another twist after that in terms of someone who's on the hero side turns out to be bad. Because at no point in the movie do I ever really wonder who's on whose side. It's pretty clear who the good guys are, it's pretty clear who the bad guys are, which isn't that big of a criticism. This is a superhero movie, it's a Marvel movie. But when we talk about this sort of espionage thriller, the thriller aspect of it really at most is only contained from scene to scene. To say Robert Redford's a twist, it's really not that big of a twist. I mean, he's one of the biggest movie stars ever. He's introduced
Yeah,
only
yeah.
in this movie. If you've read the comics, you know, there's
Right.
no real.
With him, but I honestly, when I first saw it, didn't think he was the bad guy at first, just because of, to me, he sold it with I'm gonna find out who did it. Like, you're not gonna
Sure.
stop me, but I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's not like when it happens, you're not like, what? So yeah. And I like the idea that there could have been another twist. Yeah, maybe the other twist was supposed to be Gary Shandling's character. Is
I
that what
think
we
I mean
find
that
out
I think
maybe?
that's something, but again, he's not in the
Yeah,
plot of. I mean, I
right.
look. I
No,
think the
yeah,
best pick, and I realize this messes up, and this is one of the reasons I really don't like the MCU formula of everything has to exist outside of the movies. Maria Hill, I think, would have been a great choice. Oh, we just assume she's on our side, but she's been in some of the previous movies, and I feel like it could have really made it feel like this is bigger than we
right.
thought.
I thought it was a good introduction though, to her character, because I wasn't expecting her to be in the movie at all, and I also wasn't expecting someone to be, the person in the mask to be someone on their side in the back of the truck. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I just in general, like, I do like her a lot though in the MCU universe.
I'm just sitting here
Yeah.
looking at the cast, and I'm thinking it would either have to be her or
Right. Yeah.
Emily Van
To make it
Camp,
be a good. Yeah.
who's Kate. Which is, I'm not saying it could
Sure.
have been that, but for what it's worth, in a movie that's a spy movie that's building suspense around who's on whose side, I don't really think as an audience we're ever confused about who's on whose
No.
side. And even to your point, I mean, I think that Alexander Pierce, played by Robert Redford, is you do think he's good until he's not, but there's
I
a
mean, they tell
pretty
you.
good chunk of the movie left once you know he's bad.
Right, which I kind of like, but yeah, but
Yeah.
then, like you said, once they do the twist, then there's not another twist
You almost have a
anymore.
reverse twist because you have
Yeah.
the Winter Soldier who ends up going good. Not really much of a
Yeah,
twist, yeah.
right, yeah, especially,
Um,
yeah.
how do you feel also about this? Because this is another note I made. There's 2 points that I noticed while watching this where Steve Rogers basically attempts to commit self-sacrifice. When he tells Maria Hill to blow up the hovercrafts, even though he's on it, and then when he's fighting Bucky, he throws the Hail Mary where he says their old catchphrase, as Bucky's just beating the holy shit out of him. But in that point, Bucky pulls his hand back and the ship falls apart and Cap falls. So we learn moments later that Bucky ends up saving him, so it's safe to assume he wasn't going to smash his face in. But in that moment, Cap again did kind of flip a coin and saying, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if that works for me. I don't know that I like the idea of Captain America basically being okay with just dying twice in this movie and really just sort of larger circumstances kind of save him. I don't know that I noticed it the first time. That really stood out to
Hmm.
me this time watching it.
Yeah, that's interesting. The one with the helicarriers was definitely a I'm gonna die if you do this. But the one with Bucky, I feel like I mean, he was still taking a risk, but I felt like he thought he was never going to actually do it. I still feel like, yes, he's saying, I'm going to sacrifice myself, and he really means it because he's doing it. But I don't think he actually thought Bucky. But I don't know. I mean, maybe he did. I kind of read it as he figured he'd get through to him. But
Oh, I mean, I did too, but
yeah,
I think that's a hell of a risk to take.
it
I just
is.
feel like when you're the greatest
Right,
hero in
right.
the MCU and you're just sort of like, hey, look, I'm either gonna get my best friend back or I'm gonna die. Either way,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of good to call it here.
yeah.
Like I don't
I
know, it was
guess.
a little. I don't know if lazy is the right word, but it seemed,
Hmm,
I don't know, not as heroic as it could have been. Maybe that's the way. I just want a little
maybe.
more
Yeah.
command out of my hero.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. But it almost made me like him because it went to his side during Civil War. It sets it up a little bit that he really actually is a good person. I mean, where obviously Tony
Bucky is, you're
Stark.
talking about.
No, actually, I'm talking about Steve Rogers.
Oh, okay, okay.
Meaning, obviously, he's a good person. He's a hero. You know what I mean? Tony Stark is also a good person, a hero. But like, I think at the end of the day, though, there's just Tony really doesn't care about anyone's feelings. You know what I mean? If you hurt someone's feelings, where I don't know, I feel like Steve Rogers is supposed to be, where he's the epitome of
But
what good is supposed to be.
well, Sid, let me ask you this though. With that being said, we're talking about the psychology of the characters in this moment. Tell me if this doesn't work the same way. You literally flip them. Captain America is on top of Bucky. He has the upper hand. He has a knife to his throat, a gun to his head. He has his fist cocked back, whatever it is. And instead of punching Bucky, he says their tagline, their catchphrase, and Bucky comes back, and then the floor drops out. And then we cut to Bucky, who clearly was conscious in the fall, saving Steve. My point is, I think you can have your hero having the upper hand and not being getting his ass kicked and being underneath the villain, then
Oh, I see
basically
what you're
just
saying.
throwing out this Hail Mary, and then the whole
No.
bottom floor starts to fall. Why structure it that way when you can give your hero the upper hand? He can almost seem more heroic because he's not taking out the threat. He's using kindness, which awakens Bucky. And then as a point of tension, we don't know what happens next because the floor falls out. And then we see how it reveals in the exact same way, where Cap was unconscious, Bucky saved him, but now Bucky's on the lam. I mean, to me, it's the same script, it's the same budget. You just literally flip the position of the two actors, and for me, that makes a really, really big difference, as opposed to this, where it's like this is Captain America Winter Soldier, not Winter Soldier Captain America. I mean, this is a Captain America movie, and he gets bested.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, Sid, I know you're friends with Feige, so I know you'll get back to me
Ah,
at
yeah,
some point.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
that's my argument. People, let me
Captain
know in the
Chaos.
comments. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, it's funny because I like Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes in this movie a lot, but I wasn't a real big fan of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Well, you
Uh,
know why you probably didn't like that, Sid? Because it didn't have Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Downey
right,
Jr., Colby
right.
Smulders.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, but it was good. But they were good in this, and one of my complaints at first, which I'm getting over, is sometimes when I feel like they give Falcon like superhuman strength sometimes, and it's like he
Hmm,
is just a guy who has on a wingsuit, but he's
yeah.
catching people in midair and he's throwing them, through the air and
Yeah.
stuff. Oh, Gary Shandling was great in it, especially
Oh yeah.
because I mean, I don't know if they ever talked about it or if but that scene where he hurts his leg, I feel like that was so just improv. Like he hurt his leg and they just stayed in character. It's such a great scene, man. Should I get that checked out? He said, yeah, yeah, get that checked out.
Look, there's an injection of certain actors into MCU movies. I don't understand how or why Gary Shandling ever got mixed
Yeah.
in this. I don't know. I love it. I'd like to think that in maybe the next couple years we start seeing cameos from like Larry David in an MCU
Oh
movie
my
because that
God.
to me is like the equivalent. I mean,
Yeah,
what?
that would
Like,
be all. Yeah,
what is he, or just Jerry Seinfeld or something popping
yeah.
up in one of these? Like, characters and performances, City. What do we give it? 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8.
The
Visual
visual
story. Yeah.
storytelling in this movie, it's really interesting. The Russo brothers do this thing where, they really go wide a lot and let a lot of the action breathe, whether it's Batrox the Leaper, who I didn't even bring up, played by George St. Pierre, under characters and performances, Two-time, I'm sorry, two-division UFC champion George St. Pierre, one of my favorite fighters of all time. So that was a really fun cameo to see him. But I really like the fight sequence on the ship at the beginning. We kind of go wide, and so many of the fight sequences in this movie are hand-to-hand combat. It's not about tools and weapons. And even when they do, you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the fight scene in the elevator, it's always just used to a little bit of effect to really, I don't know, enhance the tone. There's still a lot of paint by number stuff. It's a Marvel movie. You know, I mentioned the Russo brothers not being afraid to go back in these wides. I would have loved for them to stay in these wides a little bit longer, but of course they have to drop in an edit, every 4 seconds because it's just one of those movies.
I mean, you have from the start, his uniform is different. We don't have the red in it.
Hmm.
So we're already dealing with more muted, again, bringing you back more into reality, also bringing you into the spy world more. His shield doesn't have the red around it. If you look up most pictures online of that shield, it looks like it's silver and blue. But if you look at like some stills from the actual movie, you can see it's like the red paint was ground off of the two stripes.
Oh,
Almost
okay.
like it got down to bare metal, almost like he wanted to go in stealth mode or something.
Right. You didn't want to pop out. Yeah.
Yeah, to Black Widow's hair really stands out for this movie.
And even her
Um,
costume is like stripped down. Like even from there's just less
yeah,
gadgets and stuff.
less
At one point,
gadgets.
she's in the classic sort of I don't know what you call it jumper, but it's
Hmm.
sort of the belt and like again a very stripped down version of it.
I mean, and then they spend a good portion of their time, in regular clothes, walking through the mall and a few other times, which I thought was kind of neat. I mean, or at least also kind of brought it into reality as kind of a spy thriller.
The look of the Winter Soldier. He's clearly the bad version of Captain America, but he doesn't just look like an
Right.
inverted version. Like he's clearly his own design and his own
Sure.
character, and I think that really elevates him
Yeah,
and
definitely.
this movie by default.
Hmm. Yeah, and he has his own particular weapons, and I mean, I noticed that like it looked like they all just stuck to him. He didn't really have holsters; they just stuck to the sides of him on his leg or his back. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Like when you have two super soldiers, but then you give him the arm in
Hmm.
addition, really does make him a substantial threat to Captain America. Which I mean, maybe he actually is stronger than Captain America. Like you
He's
said at the end,
enhanced.
he bested him. Yeah, I mean,
And he's got metal muscles in one arm instead of
yeah,
human muscles, so yeah, why not?
I mean, technically, he was a lot stronger than Steve Rogers was
Yeah.
beforehand, so it would make sense, maybe.
Yeah, why isn't Winter Soldier like 7 foot tall? Shouldn't he be like
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, right? Boy, Bucky Barnes. That's a rough name.
well,
Not an intimidating name at all.
no, it's not. Bucky Barnes is tough. Winter Soldier better though than what he was originally going to be called, because he was going to be known for his fresh breath. He was going to be the Winter Green Soldier.
The freshman.
That's right. He's the most menacing villain, but you
Yeah,
couldn't take away his refreshing breath.
yeah.
Everybody would always note, oh, the winter green soldier is here. Let us know if your dads or uncles thought that was funny in the comments. Visual storytelling just said 1 out of 10. What are we giving Captain America Winter Soldier?
Yeah, you were talking about the directing and of it, and yeah, which I actually really liked. I see what you're saying. Like, I didn't just didn't jump out to me as much. Watching it. I guess because I know it's a Marvel movie, so I'm not really expecting too much. But did you notice at the end, it almost like it was like one of the last few scenes. It's like all of a sudden Paul Thomas Anderson's directing it.
Yeah.
I was
I was
like,
gonna bring that up in use of sound. Yeah, there was
oh, I was like, what's going on here, man? With those
when they're all
zooms,
at the shooting
go,
range. Yeah,
yes, yeah, man. It was cool, but it was just so funny. I was like,
oh,
what? Because it's the same. I mean, Magnolia and Boogie Nights all both have scenes so similar,
well,
to that, which is it's
the
great.
Russo brothers love a nod, so
Yeah, man.
maybe
Yeah,
that's what that was. But
yeah.
visual
Visual
storytelling.
storytelling. I'm
Uh,
gonna give a 9.
The 9 is in, which brings us to use of sound. Obviously, we're diving right in. We were just talking about that sequence at the end,
Yeah,
which was really effective. I mean, for what it's worth,
sure.
it's so it's such a stylish choice that it does call attention to itself. Like I
Yeah.
can't help. I felt the same way. I was like, oh, this is really cool, but it's this kind of quiet moment, and um, I don't know. It definitely made me feel like it made me wish there were more moments like that in the movie because I
Mm-mm.
will nominate this is one of the top remote rider movies. I mean, I was constantly going from whenever they're talking to like a 28 on my volume to as soon as there's any action, I am slamming that volume down to about a
Oh.
14 because it is just the mixes of these movies drive me crazy. I mean, you've got to be a sound specialist to listen to these movies and have like a surround sound system that's custom made because holy shit, it was like I couldn't hear anything they said, and then the action was so loud. I mean, it was tough at times. So I was constant. I mean, I couldn't put my remote down the whole movie.
Yeah, yeah. No, I did not have that problem. I mean, sometimes I definitely do. I mean, I was watching it on a DVD, but
Okay,
it
see, I was
sounded
watching
fine
mine
to me.
through streaming through Disney Plus, so maybe that
Okay,
was
okay. Because I actually really liked the sound. I thought the soundtrack was really cool. Not that there's much of it, but it sounded fine. And like I said, I thought like in the elevator, the way the music kicks in during the action scenes, they had a very good spy genre movie sound as
oh,
opposed to Captain America or something, and really really cool. But yeah, I understand like yeah, if you can't hear the stuff and you're constantly jumping back and forth with the action scenes, I don't understand that. It's very annoying.
look, I quite like the music. I quite like it. I'm strictly taking issue with the mix, and this is why
Sure.
it's real talk. Maybe it strictly comes down to I don't remember which I said earlier if I had it backwards. I think mine's mono because I was listening through this through my projector. I have a great projector, but it is just one speaker. So maybe that's why the mix was so bad because it's probably two different channels, one
Mm.
being much higher than the other, whereas in your TV, you probably almost certainly have multiple speakers in there. So that's probably why it didn't affect it as much. Noted, Sid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Hey,
have to change it next time. But yeah, I did, not really a memorable score, but again, effective sound effects. Again, the spy moments, you see them come in through the parachutes, very quiet.
hmm Yeah, yeah,
Everything is
yeah.
very soft, including the sawing through the top of a car and a concrete ground that makes absolutely no sound whatsoever. What I would assume is, at least 50 to 100 pounds worth of concrete falling into the sewer or whatever, in the subways below.
First of all, everyone knows concrete is a horrible conductor of sound. And then when it's hot, it makes no noise whatsoever when it hits the ground or water.
It's like cutting
Yeah.
through a sponge. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 out of 10. What are we giving you sound, Sid?
For use of sound, like I said, I really like the sound. Honestly, I'm gonna give it an 8.
That brings us to theme. It brings us to the end. The last category, pretty safe to say, friendship is a central theme in this movie, and a bold
Yeah.
choice to make an espionage movie about friendship
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
but I think it's fair. I think it's an interesting thing to go.
hmm
Let's interweave what it means to be friend, what it is to trust. It really, and if we're putting together this sort of Cap's team, if you will, in the Civil War that's coming later, this is a really good primer for that, where he has this personal connection to Black Widow and Bucky and Sam Wilson and even Maria Hill and Nick Fury. Like this primes all of of that story here. But again, does it through a story that forces them to ask, who can we trust? Who can we not trust?
I mean, that one of them right there is trust too,
Yeah, of
who
course.
can you trust? And I think maybe another one is respect, because we were talking about that a little earlier too. There's definitely a lot of respect, like everyone kissing each other's ass as they're trying to take them down.
Very true. Also, surveillance, or Big
Yeah,
Brother is a big
right,
theme that's
right,
discussed. What's kind of forces the heroes to take a position, which, they sort of do. They're sort of a soft position.
right, right,
If Sam Jackson's Nick Fury and Steve Rogers represent separate sides of an argument. At least it starts that way, but it's kind of hard to see where that ends up going by the end of the
right.
movie. They're certainly on the same side, but I don't really know how much they agree or disagree with each other by the end of it.
you said that, and I start thinking about the helicarriers and like how many people they were going to take out just based on them being people that they thought would cause trouble.
Yeah,
So there's a theme right there because I mean that goes back to everything
preventative.
from Germany, World
Yeah,
War
to
II
Minority Report. Yeah.
to yeah to but I mean to I don't know the Everglades today.
I don't know if there's
Yeah,
another kill count as high as there is. I mean, and I'm talking about just we talked earlier, we touched on the car sequence when
yeah,
it's
yeah.
when Nick Fury is sort of pinned in traffic. I mean, there were smartphones in 2014. I don't know how this did not go all over TMZ.
Oh,
I mean,
right,
this
right.
car crash, this involves at least a dozen vehicles, had to be 6,000 rounds of ammunition, a few bombs right in the middle of,
Tony Stark took care of that, wiped it clean. Yeah,
yeah, Men in Black are also in this
yeah.
universe. They just
Well, I mean, and then what's his name? Winter Soldier. He's standing on top of that plane, and I mean, he shoots that guy point blank in the head through the. I was just like, well, that's dark. That's dark for a future hero.
got to do what I got to do, killing. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
nobody in this movie who's safe. Even Captain America, there are sequences where I love that wide shot at the beginning where he's just running along the boat, just throwing people overboard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, there's no way that guy's gonna survive. He's in the middle of the ocean at night. Like, he's gonna drown. Like, make of that what you will in terms of the heroes in this movie, but they are all cold-blooded murderers
Yeah, yeah.
with no
Yeah,
hesitation.
I mean they're ready to blow him away, but he's like, "Oh, there's helicopters. We don't kill him yet." I love it. It's like it just seems like
Oh,
it's just itching to pull the trigger. But
I
yeah,
mean, even
sorry.
that reveal of Maria Hill in the back, guys, let's
Yeah.
face it,
Oh
she
yeah.
kicks a man who has a SWAT helmet on, and then he falls to the ground. He's not knocked unconscious. She just
Right.
snapped his neck.
Yeah.
He's dead. Like, he's no longer with us. So yeah, a traitor in the best sort of sense. Well, I'll just ask you straight up then. Winter Soldier.
Did
Uh,
they take him down the chute with him when they left the
No,
van?
no,
I
the
have
body
to.
was there when they opened the
Okay,
back.
good. It
Yeah, no,
was.
he was just flopped
Okay.
over. Yeah, he was
Okay. Okay,
still dead.
good.
They didn't even check the pulse. They were like, "Oh, we lost one."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like, oh, that was Bob. We don't like Bob anyways.
Well, I
So
also wonder how come nobody else in Shield has that tech of that like lightsaber pocket knife. I mean, maybe
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just Nick Fury who has it.
yeah. Maybe they all have it. Needed to get out of a car. The two times they got stuck in the car, that's what they used to get
I'm
out.
telling you, Kitty Pryde, eat your heart out. Yeah, who needs a
Yeah,
phasing power when you can just
right.
swipe your way through? Well,
Yeah.
anyway, Sid, what do you give the theme? 1 out of 10.
No, they're decent themes, but like whatever. 7. I'm gonna go with the. I'm gonna go with the. I'll go with the 7.
The
I'm gonna go with the
7.
7. Yeah.
Sid, we've got a lot of very similar scores on this movie.
Oh, all
So I'm
right.
gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna reveal it now. I'm not gonna
Okay.
wait 4 years to build to some sort of
Oh.
big
Okay.
massive reveal. I'm just gonna do it here because I'm no Feige, that's clear. You gave the plot an 8. You gave the characters and performances an 8. You gave the visual storytelling a 9. You gave the use of sound an 8. And you gave the themes a 7 for a total of 80, which is an A minus. That's a big leap from the F plus from the last time you were on the
Yeah.
show. You want to give it an A minus, an A plus. What do you want to do, City? It's a new year,
Yeah.
new you.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it A plus.
I love it. There's that
Yeah.
positivity that was sorely lacking last time.
Yeah. It's not. It wasn't my fault. He talked to the writer.
Fair enough. Well, maybe we
Yeah.
just need to get some champagne in you next time because
Yeah.
you've almost knocked out a whole bottle.
Yes.
To your 8, I gave the plot a 7. To your 8, I gave the characters and performances a 7.5. Visual storytelling to your 9, I gave it a 9. Use of sound to your 8, I gave it an 8. In themes to your 7, I gave it a 7.
Nice.
So to your
Pretty
80,
close.
I gave it a 77. So I gave it a B plus to your A plus. I'll be honest, prior to this viewing, I held this movie in a little bit higher regard. I still really enjoy it. I still like it, but it always felt a little bit more like an exception to the MCU rules than I remember it being. But upon this rewatch, I realized it's really more or less just really utilizing, embracing those rules really well. And I do enjoy it, but it is at all times just kind of oozing with those MCU qualities, which I think holds it back at some points. I gave it a B plus. That's not a bad grade at all. You gave it an A plus. It doesn't get any better than that. Sid, do you have a favorite MCU movie?
I mean, well, it'd be pretty tied close with this and Iron Man.
Iron Man, yeah.
2008 Iron Man, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a handful that I really like. I mean, even the first 10 years, it's better than what's come out, after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find myself going to this movie more than any other movie. Or
Okay.
yeah, but it's right up there with the first Iron Man. It would be hard to pick one over the other. But yeah,
Well,
I
hell
dig
yeah.
it, yeah.
Well, luckily, listeners of the show, if you haven't listened to it yet, on episode 10, we did review Iron Man. Sid's on that episode. We talk Fast and the Furious, but friend of the show, W.H. Park, over at Post Wrestling, he comes in and helps me review Iron Man, and it was a really good chat. So everybody should check that out if you haven't. This, again, one of my favorite MCU movies, and it sounds like maybe it is your favorite MCU movie. Sid, I'm so glad you came through. We're gonna have a great year this year in 2026, reviewing
Oh yeah.
movies here in the jungle. Lots of good stuff to come. Until next time, I'm on your left.
Nice.
Platinum Plastic isn't just a proud sponsor of Real Talk, they're also the home for all our new designs and merchandise. Follow Platinum Plastic on Redbubble to see all our A-plus gear. That's Platinum Plastic on Redbubble for all your Real Talk merch.
Before this lion stepped in front of a microphone with aspirations of being a film critic, I spent many years watching Gene Siskel debate Hollywood's weekly releases with Roger Ebert, and in 1998, Mr. Siskel named this film his top choice for Picture of the Year. I was surprised by the choice then, and after my 2025 viewing of the film, I'm still a bit perplexed as to how Babe 2, Pig in the City, stole the heart of my favorite film critic. Now don't get me wrong, as you'll see, I have lots of positive things to say about this whimsical sequel that does succeed at surpassing its predecessor in terms of scope and range, which is saying something. Like Babe himself, this little film is packed with joy and surprises that I believe age very well, including a great performance by the hilarious Magda Zubinsky of Australian TV fame. Although the human cast is humble, the real stars are the animal performers, and many contemporary films could learn a thing or two from Babe, as nearly every frame is packed with believable performances achieved with minimal use of puppets or special effects and are delivered by non-humans. I knew I needed a very special voice to review this very special movie, and I'm lucky enough to know a man who is part key grip gaffer and equal parts farmer. So how can I not invite him to hopefully just review Babe and not butcher the little pig as well? I'm so happy to welcome to the jungle my good pal for the first time, Mr. Charlie Harold. Charlie, did that duck follow you all the way here from Jacksonville?
Hey, yes, I can't get the booger to leave me alone.
Well, he's welcome. We'll get him comfortable. We'll get him a drink. But Charlie, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you, man.
Al, I'm so thrilled to be here in the jungle with you, bro. Babe 2 was quite a ride. I'm ready to tackle. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts as well.
Well, I can imagine, because this is a very interesting movie. But I gotta ask, because when we chatted a couple weeks ago, and I was asking if you might be interested in doing this, you teased that maybe you were gonna watch it with your kids. I'm curious, did you end up watching it with them, or was this a solo viewing?
Oh, no way. I totally did it with the kids.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Well, then I'm gonna also have to press you for a little bit of commentary throughout the conversation as to maybe what their reaction were to some things. But before we get into the movie, because again, correct me if I'm wrong, this was your first time seeing Babe 2, Pig in the City, or had you?
Yes, first time.
Would you mind maybe just kind of priming the audience just a little bit on your background? I obviously tease you up as being a great key grip and gaffer. That's how we know each other. We've worked together many times on set. But since the pandemic, you have created a rather thriving business down in Jacksonville, Florida, where you are supplying even more than just your sort of immediate area now with
15 years or better in film and television. I've done $300 million shows. I've done, $100 music videos. I've almost done them all. seen a lot of things and really, really, really enjoy the camaraderie and the complexity of problem solving on set, right? It's not just one guy pulling off the magic. It's a massive team that is steadily solving problems every day. And you've got tools and vast amounts of equipment that help you conquer these problems because they just arise so fast and so often. So that's why we're there, right? We're all there to tell the story and push through the problems along the way. And so when the pandemic came along, it was so wild, Al. It was like I had a handful of jobs lined up, and then one after the other, they started just disappearing. Hey Charlie, we're not coming to Jacksonville. We don't know what's going on. We'll call you, next year. And that's there's a dozen jobs that just went away overnight. And so we just started thinking, well, this ain't gonna work. You know, what are we gonna do? You briefly saw food start getting weird, in the shelves and in the grocery stores. For crying out loud, toilet paper was hard to even find. And so me and my family, we just started taking a look at our immediate assets and our immediate abilities, and we thought, what could we do? And we have 6 acres, which is where my lighting and grip shop is, and it's where it's been my home for 20 plus years. And so we took a look at the back 4.5 acres and says, you know what, we might be able to do something here with with chickens, right? Because a cow needs about an acre per cow, give or take, but a chicken needs maybe less than 6-7 square feet. And when you do that math, we thought we were onto something. And sure enough, my family thought I had lost my mind. My colleagues, my guys, that work with me all the time, they thought, Charlie has lost his mind. It's finally happened. He's talking about like chicken farming. What's wrong with this guy? He flew the coop. And I did, but I guess like most good entrepreneurs, you kind of jump out of the plane and you build your parachute on the way down, and that's kind of how we did it. We jumped out and we went for it, and now here we are, almost 6 years later. I think June 2026 will be 6 years, and we're now producing 100,000 chickens on an annual basis. Chickens you can eat, eggs you can eat, and chickens you can put in your own backyard. So just a vast scope of poultry on a little scale, but it's a big scale for us.
That's incredible. And I can attest, I was kind of at a front row seat, at least from a social media perspective. I wasn't down in Jacksonville during the pandemic, but yeah, the way you introduced the brand and grew it, I mean, it was really, really impressive. And from one cowardly lion who would like to think he knows a thing or two about chickens, I can assure you that it's always been fascinating watching, again, the care you take, and it is really fascinating. And so everybody should go check out Charlie's website. We'll have it linked in the show bio. They have a great logo, which Real Digital may or may not have had a little bit of help with designing and branding early on there. But that's absolutely besides the point. We got a movie to talk about. I'll just tee you up what you think of the plot of Babe 2, a sequel, Pig in the City.
I was really having a hard time hanging on to what plot may be. Pretty stereotypical. The farm is up against the bank and we need money, and so I got it. I was having a hard time hanging on with the whole it was like, in my opinion, as a now almost 6-year farmer myself, there's a major contrast between the farm life and the city life. That's fair. It's completely fair, and it's real, right? Farmers in an airport is something pretty special, especially if you've never, and then you got an animal at the airport, and then all the things. So anyways, the plot of trying to save the farm really veered off hard into some other avenue of Babe's loyal and kind character, which then kind of tried to come back at the end, but I don't really know exactly how. Selling the hotel was, how did the farmer get some of that money? I'm confused on how it transpired.
It's a really fun ride, and obviously probably not a lot of people going to Babe 2 thinking, we're gonna get this, heist style thriller of a, where this plot is gonna be super tight. But I do agree. I think there's a lot of different setups to just get Babe to the city, and you can almost use anything to get him there. And it does kind of leave you scratching your head a little bit as to why this was the kind of vehicle for it. And even the farmer's wife who goes with him, I thought, well, this is going to kind of be like a buddy cop thing, maybe. But then she's gone for most of it, and then sort of comes back for this really big finale, which visually I think is a really great payoff. But yeah, in terms of just story and plot, I thought the same thing when we get to the end. For those unfamiliar, when they get to the city, which it is fun, it's sort of in every city. It's sort of like little landmarks from every city in the world. And there's only one hotel that the farmer's wife and Babe can stay at, but the farmer's wife has to leave, and so Babe kind of goes on this adventure. And at the end, yeah, they end up selling the hotel, the owner does, and somehow the farmer's wife gets a cut of this, which is how they end up funding the farm. It's yeah, a little bit more confusing than it almost needs to be. I think there's a lot of ways, like I said earlier, that we could get Babe to the city, because the plot, he's not even supposed to go to the city. The story is he's going to go to this sheep herding competition or show, and their flight gets messed up, or they think that Babe has cocaine, actually, now that I recall. And so they detain the farmer's wife. She misses her flight and they get stuck in the city. So again, it's funny, but it is a little bit strange in terms of a plot. Now, you don't have any pigs on your farm. If the financial livelihood of your farm depended on a chicken, what skill maybe do you think one of your chickens has that maybe you could make a little extra coin off of, And in the age of social media, who knows what that could be? There might be like an Only Chickens account out there that we don't know about.
I've got one chicken out there on the pasture. She's in our pasture raised operation. The kids call her Howard. All right,
Okay.
Howard, and she's the one bird out of about 3,000 of them that will jump up on your shoulder every time you go out into the paddock.
Wow.
Every time you go in there, no matter what you're doing, you're collecting eggs. Here she comes out of the blue. She just jumps right up on your shoulder. And I got to tell you, we raise a good bit of chickens, and we have more of an intimate relationship with our chickens than just raising them for butchering or whatever. Like,
Sure.
a lot of our chickens we raise to sell to other families. So we're interacting with chickens on the regular, but this one bird every day, and it's the kid's favorite. She'll jump up on Malachi's or Cash's shoulder. They'll grab her and walk her. It's like they're her buddy. It's almost like a babe. It's really something to see.
Wow, well, shout out to Howard. That's amazing. I love it. If you ever did like a pirate Halloween thing, you could have Howard as your parrot,
I could probably pull that off. Yes, sir.
Well, there you go. If we were monetized, I would have people leave like a tip or something for Howard if we would donate it to the farm. But if you had to give the plot a 1 out of 10 rating, what would you give it, Charlie? 1 out of 10 eggs.
Oh boy. I'd give it a 3. I'd give it a solid. I've seen worse, but I'd give it a solid 3.
All right, I love it. No, respect. A lot of times people come on the show, it's their first score, they're nervous, they go a little high. I like that you said, no, the gloves are off, not messing around. The 3 is locked in. That brings us to characters and performances, and I mentioned in my open, so keep me honest here, Charlie. These animals, well, I mean, I really bought into the performances. I mean, I spent a few minutes at times thinking, boy, how did they block this out? What tricks were they doing to sort of get the animals to go and land in various places when they needed them to? But I don't know, am I a sucker? Am I crazy? I mean, I think that was kind of maybe the most impressive feat of this whole movie, is that at times there's half a dozen different animals on screen, and they're all maintaining the same eye line. One's hitting different marks within the frame.
There was super minimal computer generated stuff. These are practical critters, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few times that I noticed there were some singing mice, which I believe were probably puppets or little animatronics just based on how they were positioned. Also, whenever Babe is in the crate, I could kind of tell, I think that's a puppet. It would make sense that why wouldn't that be a puppet? But for the most part, yeah, I mean, really difficult to spot any puppet work. And aside from, yeah, the mouth moving, I mean, no full CGI animals. All the animals are real. They're just, computer generated at most. Yeah.
I mean, that's I gotta tell you, pulling that off. I mean, you and I have been on set numerous times with animals, and there's the big eye roll, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be here all day. I mean, gosh, we did a Florida Lotto commercial, and the gag was a seagull. There was puppet seagulls, there was live seagulls, and the guy had to fly in from where Oklahoma, so I don't know where he came in, and we had to follow all these rules for this seagull to be on set in order for it to jump from one person to the other and get the ticket and fly away. I mean, man, that was our day, right? We spent maybe 2 hours filming all the other stuff, but the rest of the 6 hours of actual filming was working with a seagull. And I can only imagine with all them critters on set, buddy. I mean, it's like, I think the plot doesn't matter as much as the feat they accomplished with pulling off a set full of live animals. That is
Absolutely.
wild, man.
And again, animals aren't interacting with people a lot of times in movies. I mean, I've been on set with a lot of horses, but you never have a horse not in the shot with its handler or someone riding it. You know, the human is always right there. You know, a lot of shoots with dogs, but the dog is like running to the kid, playing with the family. The dog isn't on camera with three chimpanzees and an orangutan and a pig. I mean, it really was yeah, just kind of fascinating. And the design of the set, especially when we're in the city, I mean, you could tell they're on a lot of sound stages, which makes perfect sense when you have these animals and whatnot. But again, there's just a charm to all of it, and it comes from these performances. And I think from a filmmaking perspective, again, I think it's such a great lesson. And yes, a performance is everything, but a performance can be influenced by so much, from the lighting, from the music, and the edit. And look, this movie is such a great example. I mean, you have a pig who's you're worried about at certain points, you think is funny at other points, is kind of very charming, and, you know, no offense to the pig, but it is a pig. And, you know, it's like so many of these cinematic elements are being used to sort of bring this performance to life, let alone a dozen different animal performances. So obviously, like I said, we've got plenty of performances in the movie from animals, a handful of human characters. But what I think is kind of fun about it is the human characters themselves almost become like cartoons. You know, at one point, like there's a character who sort of gives our main characters the hotel information, and you're just behind him the whole time, and he's this friendly stranger, and then he turns around, he has this pig face, you know. And again, there's a moment where the farmer's wife is holding Babe in like a sack, and there's just this sort of top-down shot. You see them both, and she's holding her like a baby. And I don't know, there's just the humans in this movie have a very, very distinct look.
The contrast was pretty intense in my opinion. Like especially when they get to the city, it's like the city was evil, right? The city's just overrun with just, you know, hooligans or whatever you want to call it. But however, I mean, you know, they had like women in, I mean, pretty revealing like bikinis and things. I was like, man, that was a little risque for such a family film, in my opinion. And not trying to be silly, but it was a wild contrast. I mean, I think they pushed it as far as they could. The city's evil, farmers are great, and then there's this little slice in the city where these weirdos, right, are okay with farmers and animals, and they are such weirdos that they even look. I mean, come on, the lady at the hotel was like, how'd they pull that off? I mean, wow. And Uncle Fugly, are you kidding me?
Who is a literal clown. I mean, you identified him as a weirdo, but that's not even really a subjective term. I mean, he's a professional clown who has this like band of apes that are his performing act. Again, I mean, in the age of social media, I feel like Uncle Fugly would have like 2 million followers. I mean, this guy is
What?
yeah, dude, he's got an ape doing cue cards. He's got another ape like working the crowd. I mean, it was really impressive. I don't know how this guy again, but maybe that was George Miller. Shout out the director George Miller, because he really had these animals on a very short leash. No pun intended. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, there's a very stark contrast, and when we're on the farm, it's funny because there is almost this like photo negative contrast. We're on the farm, you have this tall, skinny farmer and his short, stout wife, and then when you get to the city, the hotel is this tall, lean woman, and then this short, stout, like Uncle Fugly. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know, care what city or what part of the world you're in, Uncle Fugly and his landlord, I don't even know what the relationship is there, but yeah, they would stick out like a sore thumb. Well, I might as well ask Charlie, 1 out of 10 characters and performances.
Let's say, I mean, I, I say, we give it give it a 7.
Considerably better than the plot. I think Uncle Fugly was sweating there for a second. He wasn't sure what he was gonna. Seven's a good score. Nobody's hating on the 7. That brings us to visual storytelling. I mean, we talked a lot about the characters and performances in terms of the animals and how much that sold it. But when I watch a movie like this, I really was interested in hearing your thoughts as a professional G&E lead, G&E head, if you will. And you and I noted before we recorded, this had a $90 million budget. So clearly there was some money for more than just puppy chow. They were putting it into the look.
It made it, enjoyable as it could be because it was easy on the eyes. Like it was shot well. I mean, gosh, even the effects, Arthur falling down the well, it wasn't cheesy. Like that was a big rig. The wife, farmer's wife herself, right? Is herself, bouncing all around the ballroom. I mean, though it didn't make any sense at all, I was completely just, what is going on? But watching all the stunts and how they pull it off and how it was lit, it looked great. Now, was it super cohesive? I had a hard time, again, back to the plot. It was like, what's going on here? But visually, it was lit well, shot well, knowing what it takes to pull all that off. I mean, I can only imagine how many stand-in animals they had to bring in there to try to light. Because I mean, once you're off to the races, that's it. I would imagine they spent gobs of time lighting these sets, gobs of time, with dummies and stand-ins and animal stand-ins, whatever. And then once the animals are in there, I'm sure you don't have a lot of opportunity to keep tweaking. So I think that a lot of effort went into getting a really nice image, and it shows. And then I think that's what kept me entertained.
And I would imagine, yeah, those animals are probably maybe a little doped up on something. So you bring them in, you might have a little adjustment of the B board or the Babe board, maybe they would call it on this set. Visual storytelling. What would you give Babe?
Oh, visual storytelling. I wanna honor the effort with this score, right? Because there's a lot of effort. So I don't want to be so naive as to say, didn't like it, so it was, but like knowing there was so much work to go in to achieve what they did on camera, I gotta give it a 7 again. I gotta give it a 7.
Charlie, you are a hard nut to crack, and I appreciate that. See, on the exterior, you're a sweet, loving man, but when it comes to the film criticism, nothing gets past you. So I love it. That brings us to use of sound. This is a movie that I wasn't really sure going in what kind of a soundtrack it would have. It has a very classical soundtrack. All of the music in it are various classical pieces. I believe some Italian opera is even in there, which at some points is sung by these 3 little mice, which did crack me up, especially at the beginning. So from a music standpoint, it does have a pretty distinct tone in the soundtrack, and I think the overall tone of the movie is really defined by the soundtrack. But then also, again, we have to recognize under use of sound, the almost 75% of the cast is VO. It's these various voices and use of voiceover work, and in addition to sound effects and various things, to sort of enhance the environments and the sense of danger or whatever's going on. So all that being said, what were, I don't know, some of your thoughts on the use of sound in the music?
The sound, I think, was the one glue that helped me understand the vibe of what I was watching. Like, right? So like if it was a minor or if it was a major or if it was somber or whatever, that would help me kind of understand what's unfolding. Because, sometimes the visual would take me so back on, like the hotel lady and the the what's I don't know what the name that haircut was that she had, right? It was just a wild cut, this 6 foot slender, thing. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but then the music would help me kind of understand the dynamic of the relationship I was watching. So I got to tell you, sound effects, the music, syncing up all the dialogue with the critters. Man, I'd give it an 8. I'd give it a solid 8.
No, I love it. And I think that's super fair. I mean, I think if there's a highlight of this movie, the use of sound is kind of objectively it, because it doesn't really miss on any level. It kind of does what it's trying to do, and I totally agree. I love what you said about the glue holding it together, because yeah, tonally this movie kind of is swinging in a lot of different directions, but the music is pretty consistent and somehow kind of binds it. That of course brings us then to our final category, which is theme. This movie, as all family films do, as all, or most G-rated films do, it comes with some messages. We mentioned, that the plot was maybe a little bit difficult to digest, or would kind of leave you scratching your head. In terms of the themes, and you said you watched this with your kids. Did you feel like there was a specific theme or two that stood out, or that really resonated, that was easy to digest?
I related to the theme of let's do whatever it takes to save the farm. I think that's kind of what I immediately thought you were thinking of when you were thinking of me. I was like, oh, here it is. Yeah, we got to do whatever it takes to save the farm. Look, farming ain't easy. All right. I've got, we've got staff and friends and family here that will completely agree that farming is probably one of the hardest things you'll ever try to accomplish, especially if it's going to be successful in some level. You can farm and just farm it all away, but if you're going to create some sort of sustaining farm, often you'll see me, just like the farmer's wife, digging through stacks of papers, looking for some deal that I said, no, we're not going to deal with, but now I got to have that deal if we're going to make payroll, if we're going to feed the birds, if we're going to pay the insurance. That's almost to a T how it goes. So the theme of what are we going to do to save the farm, I related big time. Me and the kids had a chuckle. They all looked at me, Cash Malka looked at me. Hey, Dad, that's you. Look, digging through papers.
I wouldn't say that's why I had you on specifically, but it is why I want to have you on, because, yeah, that is really insightful. I don't know that that's one specifically that would have resonated with me as much as, I think it was a general just sense of kind of home and what home means and what it feels like to get back home, friendship. I don't know. It definitely made me smile when the duck head pops up early on next to the window of the plane, and I was like, oh, that's a good buddy right there. That's a good buddy flying, and makes some friends with some pelicans that help him out. But yeah, friendship is one that at least resonated with me, and I love hearing that kind of resonated so deeply with you, that sense of, like you said, sort of doing what you have to do to keep the farm going. And even if that means trying to get your pig into a sheep herding competition, which then spirals into losing your pig in the city, who then somehow gets into a talent show, which wins over the heart of a hotel owner that you then can sell the hotel. Who knows what can happen out there, kids? I mean, there's a theme as well. Always be nice to your maitre d'.
That's right.
They might be paying your mortgage someday.
As the story unfolds, Babe keeps getting crapped on everywhere he goes, and nothing's going their way. And the little rascal, keeps his chin up, and he's still kind, even to the critters that are out to get him. I mean, I think there's a lot more here going on than we give it credit for in the overall film, especially with Babe's character and in the theme of staying true to who you are, no matter what situation you're in. I don't know if a lot of folks caught that or not, but there's, you got to engross yourself in the film to get those bits, but to be kind to your enemies is, even when someone's actively trying to get you. It's funny, we deal with some of that. I've got a crazy neighbor. I'll tell you a bit about it some other time, but I've got a crazy neighbor, and trying to be kind in the face of massive adversity is tough. Just because you leave the farm and you're in some strange foreign land or whatever, or stuff's not going your way, man, be true to yourself. I think that was a really good theme that was underlying in the film.
Yeah, there's a wonderful scene where it's sort of a chase scene that culminates with the dog chasing Babe, sort of almost drowning, and Babe saves him, and that forges a bit of a friendship that becomes very helpful to Babe. But yeah, as a character, Babe really is a great sort of hero, a great, little pig to sort of aspire to be, because he's always just sort of trying to do his thing, always gets in over his head, but sort of gets through it by just being honest and being kind. And yeah, no, I really appreciated it. And we mentioned this before we were rolling. But yeah, it's unfortunate. This movie didn't seem to really resonate with audiences. It had a $90 million budget, only brought home 18 million domestically, and worldwide a little shy of 70 million. So yeah, great lesson that Babe was teaching, but unfortunately, I don't know how many people heard it or got through. And this movie, again, not really widely streaming anywhere either, which is sort of unfortunate, because I do think it's a good one to check out. But I gotta ask you, 1 out of 10, what do you give it for theme?
That's how about let's give it a 5. I'm gonna come in at a 5.
The 5, honestly, I wasn't sure. I thought maybe that was going to be a little bit higher. You were praising it, but the 5 is in there. That means we have a total locked in, Charlie. This is very exciting. It's official. You gave the plot a 3, the characters and performances a 7, the visual storytelling a 7, the use of sound an 8, and the themes a 5, for a total of 60. Now here on Real Talk, that's like a B minus, a C plus. What would you designate that, Charlie?
I think a C is fair. C, right? I think C is good. Look, if I was looking for a movie that I just wanted to sit back with, like, kids, say the grandkids come over and we're going to kick up and just let the kids be entertained by critters running around, and knowing that it's not going to be some violent, crazy, underlining messages of things I don't agree with and blah, blah, blah. It's just to kick back and unplug and watch. It's a rock solid C.
Needless to say, if the kids, or maybe with grandma, and it's just Charlie and the old farmer's wife at home, you're probably not throwing Babe 2 on, or
No, I think we're going to have to turn on the Thin Red Line. That's something I'm going to have to take a peek.
Hey, look, I can attest that's one of my all-time favorite movies, so take that with a grain of salt on my end, but very good picture. Not quite as breezy, maybe as Babe 2. But that's what you get with old Terrence Malick. Well, I'll reveal my score. Charlie was a little bit higher than yours. But again, I might just have the spirit of Gene Siskel resonating within me. To your 3, I gave the plot a 7. I do agree that, again, it didn't quite stick the ending for me. But I did really enjoy the story. I didn't find it super predictable, even though I always kind of knew, well, Babe's probably going to be all right. They're probably going to save the farm, but I didn't really ever know how they were going to do it. Anyway, 7 to your 3. Characters and performances, I gave it an 8.5 to your 7, so just a little bit higher. Again, I was just really, really impressed by what they were able to do. Visual storytelling, I gave it a 10 to your 7. I really did feel like, between the set design and just the overall production design and sort of the achievement of getting, to me, these kind of really believable performances out of the animals, I just didn't think they could really do much better. Use of sound was the same for me. I gave it a 10. I just felt like it did what it was achieving to do. I don't know that I could ask it to really do anything else for me. So that earned a 10. Theme, I gave it an 8 to your 5. I felt like the themes were strong. Not, again, super unique to the movie, at least from my perspective, but I appreciated it. So overall, I gave it an 87 to your 60. For me, it was a solid A. I gave it an A to your C, but that's probably because I'm not I'm not on a real farm. It's maybe a little easier for me to escape to the world of Babe, where maybe for you, Charlie, it's a little more, eye roll inducing. Oh, come on. A chicken would never do that. A duck would never follow me there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fun little trip. I'd say, Al, if you asked me to do this like 10 years ago, my ratings would probably be a little different.
Okay.
Simply because we're a little spoiled where we are now with the films that we watch, the things that have transpired in the last 20 years. You've got fantasies, and I don't mean to be cliche, but like Lord of the Rings and on it goes. You look at these masterpieces, and we've been spoiled with these cinematic universes of late and all the things. So now we have these expectations. And to go back and watch a movie from '98, I'm an adult. I can appreciate what I'm watching. I dig it. I'm going to try to take all this with a grain of salt, but my kids are like, what are we watching? you know? So again, I think that my ratings would have been a little different, if this would have happened, say in the early 2000s, But in any case, maybe I'm just a spoiled, bratty critic, farmer critic.
No, those are my favorite. That's why I wanted to have you on. I love a spoiled bratty critic. I mean, you fit me. That's what we're doing over here. Well, I gotta ask you then. I mean, Charlie, obviously, I thought of you farming. That made sense for this one. I'd love to have you back sometime. Maybe what are a couple of your favorite films, if I can put you on the spot, so that way, if I know, oh, we got to get Chuck for that one.
Oh, buddy, favorite films. I'll try to spew out a few. The Crow.
Oh,
Brandon Lee. Love The Crow. Very simple plot, right? Guy was murdered. Guy comes back. Guys take revenge. It kind of, stays on point. But anyways, The Crow, Return of the King was great. Great movie. Let's see.
Return of the Charlie.
The Untouchables. One of my favorite all-time movies. Untouchables. Sean Connery, Kevin Costner, right?
Yeah.
Freaking rock solid, awesome film. Let's see. I'm gonna give you one more, another favorite, like one that I like to watch. Well, you know what? As crazy as it is, Home Alone, probably one of my favorite movies. I love Home Alone.
We just reviewed Home Alone for our Christmas episode. Although we have crossed that one off the list, Charlie, you should check that one out. We had our dear friend John Pollock from Toronto. But I love that such a great 4 sort of pillars of the Charlie Herald cinematic tentpole. We've got Home Alone, we've got The Crow, we've got Untouchables, and then what was the 4th one? I'm sorry, I'm already okay. So Return of the King, of course. I'm already
yeah. Now look, now this is the broad scope. Sorry, this just popped in my mind. When I'm just feeling it and I don't want to sit down and I just want to go for a wild ride. I watched The Exorcist.
This is great, Charlie. I got so much more to be working for with this. We're definitely going to be getting to all these movies. So you're going to be getting a call from Al to come back to the jungle again soon. But thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I want to say that'll do, pig, but it seems like a horrible way to end the review, to call you a pig. So
no, that's right on point. Please, Al, please.
All right, well, since you gave me permission, then I will say it. Charlie, thank you so much for coming by. That'll do, pig.
Before we jump into the next review, I just wanted to thank you for listening this far, and I ask that you leave a like if you're enjoying the show. And let us know what movies you'd like to hear us score on Real Talk. We're almost certainly on your favorite social media platform, so search Al the Movie Lion wherever you scroll.
It's a dark time for the rebellion, but if you're a Star Wars fan in September of 1980, then you were happier than a freezing scoundrel in a tauntaun carcass, because since then one question has remained amongst Jedi and Sith alike. Is The Empire Strikes Back the best Star Wars movie? With a success in the rear view that no one predicted, it's clear to see that all parties involved were still excited about the story and characters, but the two films had yet to fully evolve into a franchise just as concerned with selling action figures as it was telling action-filled stories rooted in a consistent mythos. Empire Strikes Back contains iconic set pieces, some of the most quoted lines in cinema history, and maybe, just maybe, the best performance collectively delivered by a Star Wars cast. But in 2025, what version of the film are we actually watching? And like cinema PEDs, does that disqualify it from the conversation? Lucky for the Real Talk Council, we happen to know someone who knows a thing or two about VFX-heavy movies, so we decided to call her in to see how Empire Strikes Back holds up. Park your snow speeder and help me welcome VFX coordinator extraordinaire, Abby White. What is thy bidding, Abby?
What is thy bidding?
Yeah.
Thy bidding is good.
Wonderful.
Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie.
Wow, right out of the gate, no discussion necessary. Okay, now that we know that, I could scratch that question off the list. I often like to ask guests, when the first time they saw a movie was, but I feel like this movie is really important to know when people first saw it, because for me, it was a seminal moment. I'm curious, when's the first time you saw Empire?
Well, I grew up with 2 older brothers, so I feel like I was pretty young, and a core memory for me is playing the N64 game.
Okay.
Shadows of the Empire, where you actually flew around and you like. I just have this core memory of flying the plane around with the cable around on Planet Hoth, to take down the AT-ATs. I think I was pretty young. I mean, I had to be like probably 11.
I was in the second grade, or grade 2 for people using the metric system. And yeah, I was at a friend's birthday party, and this was the first Star Wars movie I'd seen. So this was my entry into the Star Wars universe, and I was pretty hooked. I was pretty in. This is episode 20, so thank you for being here. This is a big seminal episode, and we're talking obviously about sequels today. How do you think it kind of ranks as a sequel? Because fun fact, the director of this film, Irvin Kershner, also the director of RoboCop 2, which, safe to say, not quite on the same level of Empire Strikes Back.
I think it's actually one of those examples of where the sequel was better than the original, kind of like Terminator 2. I mean, that's my opinion. I think it's the best Star Wars movie standing alone. It has the best dialogue, the best scenes, concise, that makes sense. I think it was a really fun sequel because it was a little bit darker, kind of just allowed, let's get a little bit serious, let's see the Empire, what they have to, strike back.
I completely agree. I mean, I love Empire, and maybe listeners will have to take this all with a grain of salt then, because we have two people who are clearly on Team Empire. It really does sort of just stand on its own. They're this core story around, we start with a hero who's scooped up by a snow monster, and then we just kind of break away for a battle, a big snowy battle between these giant robot dogs. I mean, it's really wild, but then to actually split the characters off and really do this sort of deeper character work with these separate adventures that all come back together at the end with a really unpredictable ending, and oh, by the way, this big twist to end the second act.
It's a standalone. It's been a really long time since I've seen A New Hope. I didn't rewatch that one in preparation for this, but I did watch this one, and I rewatched Return of the Jedi. And I felt like Empire elicited a lot more emotion in me than Return of the Jedi. And when we come to that point at the end, when Luke finds out Vader's his dad and he loses his hand and he's hanging on that antenna in Cloud City, like, I was having anxiety and I really felt for him. Just that feeling of, everything, confusion, sadness. And so I just felt like it set up the story so well. And then, I watched Return of the Jedi and I was like, come on. You had one job.
It just has an emotional weight to it that even just the other two inside of the same trilogy don't really come with. It just does not have that same impact, or, it's easy to call it a twist. But I mean, Mark Hamill he sells it. Like, he does a great job of being confused and hurt and scared, and then of course hoping not to fall from his death. That's a lot to ask of an actor in the script. I might as well ask you too, because this is obviously more plot oriented. What are your thoughts on the decision to take a character like Han Solo? And I think at the time in 1980, a lot of people thought he was dead for the better part. It is, I don't know, a pretty bold decision to take arguably your biggest star in the movie and ice him.
Exactly. I always find villains are always more fascinating. I always find when, the bad guys, they kind of get the one up, or they get ahead a bit. It's always a little bit more interesting. I think it paid off because, again, it makes the emotion and the weight of the story heavier. There is something, sorry, I know we're talking about Empire, but when Leia is the one to unfreeze him, it kind of makes it special, so.
Yeah. And I mean, few sequels, Star Wars or otherwise, have a prop that would make as good of a coffee table. Han Solo and Carbonite. And I think everybody at one point or another has considered,
Everybody. Remember when you were a kid and it was like the needle thing and you could put your face in it?
Yeah.
To me, that was like my Carbonite.
Well, all of that being said, 1 out of 10, I'm curious, what would you give the plot of Empire Strikes Back?
9, I think. 9. And not a 10 just because there was a few things like the abominable snowman creature or Wampa. That was a weird choice. 9 is fair.
That brings us to characters and performances. I mentioned it in my open. I think this might have, just again, kind of pound for pound, the best performances in it, even by supporting characters. You know, I love Lando. He's not really in this a lot, but you get a lot of bang for your buck with a Lando. I feel like when I was watching this, and I don't know why, but it definitely has the energy of a script written by like three divorced guys.
Yeah, no, it's so funny you say that. Like the lovers' quarrel that happens between Leia and Han is, endearing in this movie. I also love, I don't know if you felt this way, but after C-3PO gets taken apart and then put back together, he gets a little spicy. Like he gets a little attitude. And I loved it, and I thought it was a hilarious choice. He's the character that always kind of comes off as aloof or, not your go-to smart person, but like he gets really spicy, and I loved it. I was like, "That's a great choice." Or like almost like a wire got a little crossed or something, and he got a little attitude, and I loved it.
We get a great droid hysterical scream in this. And it's not every movie where you just get a robot losing its shit. And I don't think I'm ever gonna not laugh at that when I hear it. When R2 just goes sailing across the swamp. I don't know who made that. I mean, I guess it was Ben Burt who made that decision. But
No, it is funny. I mean, R2-D2, I love whenever they give the droids personalities, I think is really fun.
well, I want to ask you again. We talked in terms of characters and performances. We talked about the chemistry between Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford. How about we do get a kind of a heel turn with Lando Calrissian. We do get the reluctant turn, but again, a lot of layers, for Billy to kind of play with, and what was not, again, more than maybe 5 to 6 minutes of full screen time.
You know what? You're right. That he was really impressive. I always thought of him as like, oh, he betrayed his friends. But when I rewatched it this time, I was, I really was like, oh no, like he just had to do what he thought was best for his people. In the end, ends up helping his friends. But yeah, I really liked Lando. I more than I guess I had thought of before.
As a kid, I thought he was cool. I'm like, oh, he's got a cape. And but as I get older, I really do appreciate the performance. The iconic line delivered by Mufasa himself. I'm on a lion. I got to shout out other lions. Oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? I called him Mufasa. Now I can't think of the actor's name.
Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. That's why we bring in.
Come on, Albert.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just lost in thinking about The Lion King, of course, the movie that we constantly have on over here. James Earl Jones, that's the one. He's done a few things, in particular Darth Vader. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to think of such an iconic character in cinema history that is effectively played by two different people. And we talked about the droids having personality, and there's just so much of the gravitas and sort of elegance of Darth Vader comes from his voice.
Yes, yeah, his voice just really iconic. Really can't imagine anybody else doing that role now. God, Vader, I love Vader. He's on my debit card. He's the image on my debit card. I get a lot of compliments on it.
Well, that might affect your score here. That's good to know. Vader might be affecting your credit score but I guess debit card. So that's. Well, I gotta ask you then, 1 out of 10, what would you give the characters and performances in Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, again, I think this was their best one. So I'm gonna go with an 8.
The 8 is locked in. We try to spice things up here, and sometimes it can be a little dark when you're talking about someone finding out their dad is the evil ruler of the Empire. That's heavy stuff. And so I wanted to keep it light. So I designed a little game called Abby Strikes Back. And this is 4 Star Wars related questions where it's really no wrong or right answer, which is because Abby is in control. You just have to give an answer. So here we go. If you're ready, of course.
I was trying to do my Darth Vader.
Oh.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, question number 1 of Abby Strikes Back. Which droid, gonna botch this, which droid in the Star Wars universe has the best surprise scream?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you make this your question?
All right, look.
Any, not just the originals. We're talking any.
I'll do any robot across any movie. How about that? I'll expand.
I like BB-8s, but you got to go with R2D2.
Okay. I thought for a second you were gonna.
Well, I got to show some love to the other ones as well, but
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So honorable mention to BB-8.
yeah.
Definitely R2. Okay. Here's some real fresh questions with no related bad setups earlier. All right. Of all 11 feature-length Star Wars movies, which has the best acting? Which one would you say if you had to choose?
That's a hard one. I'm gonna. People are gonna disagree with me, but
That's what the comments are for.
I don't know. Honestly, Rogue One is one of my faves. I gotta go with that one.
Rogue One, number one.
Sure.
The enthusiasm strikes back. Material-wise, I think Rogue One is a lot heavier, but I don't know from a performance range standpoint. But anyway,
That's fair.
this isn't Albert Strikes Back. This is Abby Strikes Back. So,
That's right, Albert. Lion sleeps tonight, all right?
whoa, okay. I'm going to get force choked if I'm not careful. Well, we're halfway through. 2 questions left. Abby Strikes Back. Which lightsaber blade is the coolest? Which lightsaber blade color is the coolest?
Oh.
You can see these were highly subjective questions if you haven't figured this out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people are probably gonna say Samuel L. Jackson's because he's got the purple one, but
That's pretty cool.
honestly, probably Darth Maul's because he has like two. I'm gonna go with him.
All
Darth
right.
Maul.
Darth Maul, coolest lightsaber.
Oh, but what's his name? General. Oh, what the arms?
Oh, General O. Yeah, big O.
Yeah, he can hold multiple, so.
General Grievous. Okay, so this just really comes down to how many blades you can hold in one hand.
I
And
think so. For me, yeah.
no,
I know that's the color of the lightsaber, but to me, all colors are equal, and it's about how many you can wield.
what a profound answer. That was very inspired. And yeah, why pick one color when you can have all of them? You can have a color in each hand of your Grievous. You put one in your mouth, you get a 5th one in there. So General Grievous then. We're gonna
go with him.
Okay. And then final question. Who, not what, who is the best Star Wars puppet?
Well, Yoda, obviously. That's
Okay. Okay.
What other?
I mean, Jabba the Hutt, he's a pretty solid puppet, He's got that little freak that sits on his tail. I mean, you got to at least mention him.
Oh yeah, that guy.
But Tauntaun at various points is definitely a puppet. I feel like you could.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And
let's not forget about the Abominable Snowman.
Of course, my God.
Iconic.
We've got R2, we've got Rogue One, General Grievous, and Yoda. So that's a pretty solid 4. If people are trying to weigh your Star Wars credibility, I think that game did pretty well. Anyway, that brings us to visual storytelling. Pretty good looking Star Wars movie, The Old Empire Strikes Back. We start off in Hoth, pretty snowy. We go up there into space. We were in a swamp for a little while. We go to Cloud City. A lot of really unique locations that we go to.
I think that's also another reason why it's one of my favorites. I mean, to me, Planet Hoth, just so iconic. I loved the snowy environment. I love the Tauntauns and, the AT-AT walkers. I always call them camel walkers, but, and the color palette of this movie, again, kind of goes with, it is a bit of a darker, colder story. I find that those scenes and sets kind of tell that. Even, Yoda's home planet is it's lush, but it's very foggy, and then Luke has his little encounter with the dark side that he has to face. And yeah, I think that it always goes with that theme of a little bit serious, more serious, a little bit darker, a little bit colder.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, I guess the most recent trilogy definitely threw some visual metaphor in there, but it's hard to think in the first 6 films. I mean, really, when he goes into that cave, it's really the only use of again visual metaphor in those 6 films, unless I'm forgetting something. But again, a kind of bold choice that really only exists inside of Empire. Yeah, I live in a jungle. There's a big difference between a jungle and a swamp, and I would never want to go to Dagobah. It's gross and wet. Again, I'm all, yeah, I prefer we get all damp. No, thank you. Cloud City, though, that's a cool play. I would like if I could, maybe Airbnb for a weekend in one of Lando's pads. That to me as a kid, I always thought was so cool, and I also thought Hoth was really cool, but Cloud City to me was just like,
I mean, it is really cool. And for me, that when he's on the antenna at the end and hanging for his life, and like it is really breathtaking and very emotional and really cool location. We'll get you to Cloud City.
thank you. Your support is, I was gonna say all I need, but we probably need a little bit of advancement in technology first. But regardless, now you and I met many years ago in the great state of Wisconsin. Did you grow up in Wisconsin? And if so, did you ever feel like you were in Hoth?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I did grow up in Wisconsin, and I feel like you were from Florida. Is that correct?
It's correct, yes.
That's all you're in. Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Tatooine, and you are from Hoth.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, Midwest winters, full on Hoth. Cutting open a tauntaun and laying in it sounded like a good idea.
Sometimes you didn't quite make it to class that day. You were just camping out in a tauntaun.
Actually found it as kind of a nod to the old Westerns, where a lot of them would, kill the horse to have a barricade to hide behind. Lonesome Dove is one of my favorites, and Gus does it, and that's immediately what I thought of.
Shout out to Ned Kelly. I don't know if you've ever know that story, but he had to kill his horse. He was so dehydrated he had to drink the horse's blood.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there you go. This concludes the segment of what's worse than killing a tauntaun. Using a horse as a barricade or as a canteen. Take your pick. We're talking about visual storytelling. That was what we were talking about. And I really love the carbonite chamber lightsaber fight. It's not my favorite lightsaber fight in all of the movies, but it's my favorite looking. Like, I just love the smoke and the darkness and the two blades. And there's even, again, just this, I talked earlier about the James Earl Jones and his performance. And I will say is that I believe it's James Krause, I think is the performer who did who's the body of Darth Vader. But there's just these pauses and these moves before they fight, and it's easy to think about the older films and these sort of plotting lightsaber fights, but there was a psychology to it that really did feel like two knights doing battle. And I don't know, there's just something so magical about that whole fight. And it,
I noticed that there wasn't any music, really. Normally, now in modern day, you have music kind of do these, sword fights and all, lightsaber fights and everything, and there wasn't any. So I think it made it more intimate and more emotional in a way. I do feel, how Yoda and Han were like, "Don't do it, don't go, your training's not done." So I do feel that they played into that a bit, and it always felt like Darth had a little bit of the upper hand, like he was always kind of composed, and yeah.
But yeah, it's hard for me to think of a set in Empire Strikes Back that just doesn't work. Even when we're in the medical bay on Hoth and Luke is in the big Dasani water bottle, and I watched this time, he really reminded me of I'm assuming he's having like night terrors and something because he's kind of kicking, but he kind of looks like he does a little bit of Kramer in there if you watch it next time. I might even do a cut where I put some of the Seinfeld music underneath. I like the way this movie looked. 1 out of 10. How much did you like the visual storytelling, Abby?
I would say for the time, 10. Yeah.
I realize I've done it twice now. We talked about characters and performances. I didn't bring up Yoda. We talked about visual storytelling. I didn't bring up Yoda. Yoda only came up in your game, thank God.
Yeah.
But before I actually move on to use of sound, I guess I gotta give a little bit of a shout out. What do you think of OG Yoda, the puppet? Frank Oz's hand doing it.
OG Yoda, I forgot how much of a little gremlin he kind of. Honestly, I was like, what? I love OG Yoda. I think that he is, I don't know, he is the heart of the force for me, and he's great. Whenever you can do the practical puppets like that, it just there's something really special about it, and Yoda's very special.
Yeah, no, there's just I don't know and maybe it's because I just have been watching it since I was so young, but he does just feel so real to me. There's not a second where I'm watching. It's like Kermit the Frog. I never think I'm looking at a puppet. It's always this very real character, and the way he's crawling around, like just throwing stuff over his shoulder,
Just getting into his bag.
just banging on R2 with his cane, which is so funny to me later because he lifts the freaking X-wing out of the swamp, and so it's just so endearing to know that it's like, yeah, he could just crush you with his mind, but no, he's just banging on him with a stick.
I mean, talk about an iconic line. Yoda's. There, do or do not, there is no try.
We're talking now about use of sound. Again, when you think of scores, you get a more iconic score. When you think of character sort of scores, we get what's now really thought of as like the Princess Leia score, but for a long time really was just sort of the romance between the two of them that kind of blooms. Obviously the sound effects and everything. I could go on and on, but I'll just tee you up. Use of sound. What you think?
Well, if we're talking about score, I've seen John Williams 5 times at the Hollywood Bowl. He is a true legend. Yeah. So there's nothing, more iconic than seeing everybody with their lightsabers lit up while he is playing, either the Star Wars theme or Darth Vader's Imperial March.
That's incredible. What a low key flex. You just lifted an X-wing out of a swamp like it was nothing. You're like, yeah, I've seen John Williams perform 5 times. He had a lightsaber.
Yeah. With a lightsaber, and one of his guests was Steven Spielberg, and that was a good show.
Yeah, I hear they keep in touch. They actually just announced that they will be working together. But for another one, I think it's their 30th film together, if I'm not mistaken.
John is like 93 or something.
Yeah, he's actually 193. Yeah. Yeah, I have it up right in front of me.
Good for him. Every year I remember being like, oh, this might be his last year. Oh, it might be his last year, and look at him go.
No, he's still kicking. Maybe that's the problem. Not enough of us are composing classic film scores. Maybe that's the key to a long life.
Maybe.
You did every few years you need to churn out like a Jurassic Park theme, and you get a couple decades. Well, who knows? All I know is, yeah, the man is an icon, and he just truly like kind of the best at what he does. And again, the first 3 Star Wars movies probably have pretty similar soundtracks, but I feel like just the story in this movie really, I don't know, pulls something out of it. And to the point, I love the point you made earlier about the lack of sound, the decision to not use sound, because yeah, that really does add to the visceral sort of emotional connection that you have to it. Good lightsaber sounds? Would you say solid lightsaber sounds?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. 1 out of 10. What would you give it? Use of sound specifically.
Yeah, 8. I'm gonna give it an 8.
The 8 is in the bank. That brings us to themes. Star Wars movies, they're space operas, so heavy themes. I noted a few: love, betrayal, giant space worms, and friendship. Those were the 4 that I noted as being sort of cornerstones. And also, baby daddy. That's definitely a theme in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you pretty much nailed them on the head. I think the sibling storyline, because let's just get it out there. There is kind of some weird kissing between the siblings in this movie.
Some real toxic shit going on there with Leia.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
Interesting choice.
yeah. Not only will I make you jealous, I will make you think in ways you didn't want to think you ever had to think. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, I was like, okay, well, but aside from that kind of sibling connection, and how they, there is another one who has the Force, and the fact that Leia, he's able to connect to her, and she comes and hears him and saves him at the end, right? And at the Cloud City, I think that's one of them.
No, I think you're right. Look, as an only lion, I grew up without any siblings, and when I watched these movies, I definitely was kind of like, "Oh, it'd be so cool to find out you had a sister someday," or it'd be so cool, like. But so I think that I mean it resonated with me, and I might as well ask, just to be clear, you were never crushing on somebody and laid a smooch on one of your brothers. You mentioned earlier you had a couple brothers, so you never used.
I have two older brothers.
You never use it as a tool for jealousy.
No, but I definitely feel the Force connection, sarcasm connection, but no, there's no.
Well, I think that's fair. There are your older brothers. I think it only works if you're twins, if you're maternal twins. I think then that makes it okay. That's what
That makes it okay.
Yeah.
They were in Game of Thrones too, so maybe you're right.
Oh, well, there you go. See, this is what you get on Real Talk. We connect the dots here. Yeah, no, look, I think this is a movie that's really, I mean, I think all the Star Wars movies do a good job of like being true to their themes and staying in touch with their themes because they're not really subtle. I think that this kind of what drives a lot of the story forward. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in any way. But with that being said, what would you score the themes 1 out of 10?
10. I think themes are good. The themes are good. They're clear, plentiful,
solid. You might say
solid. Give it a 10.
The 10 is locked in. That means I have a total score. I have a total score for the movie for Empire Strikes Back. It's official now, or it will be. So for the rest of your life, if anybody asks you, what'd you think? You can just send them a link to this episode. You gave the plot a 9 out of 10. You gave the characters and performances an 8. The visual storytelling a 10. The use of sound an 8. And the themes a 10 for a total of 90. Here on Real Talk, that's an A. That's a solid A, but you can give it an A plus if you want. You can give it an A minus if you want to do some real Sith shit.
Oh,
full Grievous and just
full Grievous. Oh. Sorry, I was just really on that.
No, it's a
B. Well, I think it deserves an A. It's an A. It's an A film.
It's a solid A.
Solid A.
Mr. Kirshner, I know he's listening from the great beyond. R.I.P. Irvin Kershner. I will reveal my score now. To your 9, I gave the plot a 9. Characters and performances to your 8, I gave it an 8. Visual storytelling to your 10, I gave it a 10. Use of sound to your 8, I gave it a 10.
Ooh,
because Ben Burt, I mean, I love the guy. Anyway, themes though, get this, to your 10, I gave it an 8. So we gave it the exact same score of 90.
Well,
the Force is strong with us, you might say.
The Force is strong. Obviously, I'm Leia, you're Luke. End of story, guys. We've been reborn.
And look, I mean, I usually get compared to Chewbacca as a lion, so I'll take Luke any day of the week. And I gotta ask though, out of the blue and the green, I hate to make you do it because all colors. I know
for the lightsaber,
but for the light, if you had to pick, which did you like more, the blue or the green?
The green.
I'm a blue guy. I like the blue.
Well, blue's my favorite color, but this felt tricky. So
you're a contrarian. I didn't. All right, well, we have the full scores locked in. I've got to ask you, and it's kind of a loaded question, but would you come back? Would you come back sometime?
I would love to come back. And actually, Back to the Future, if we're talking back.
No, I was going to ask you maybe what would be a good suggestion.
Yeah, that one. That's my favorite movie of all time.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Yeah.
The third one? The third one. No, that's a good pick, and we do love some Bobby Zemeckis over here, so at some point we will definitely be getting into that. I said it was a loaded question, and maybe you thought that's because I was going to then ask you what movie you wanted to watch, but it's actually because you have agreed verbally to come back, we are going to have to freeze you in carbonite until next time. So if you don't mind just walking over that orange hole, we'll take care of the rest. But until then, thank you so much, Abby. Who knew you'd be kicking off 2026 in a slab of carbonite?
Love it. It's been really fun. Thank you, Al.
Thanks for listening, and here's a look at the scoreboard from our show. Sid the Cinema Sloth gave Captain America the Winter Soldier a 90 and an A+, to my B+ in 77, with an average score of 83.5 and a B+. Charlie gave Babe 2 Pig in the City a 60 and a C, to my 87 and an A, with a 73.5 average and a B. Finally, scoring the highest on today's show, Abby White gave The Empire Strikes Back a 90 and an A, to my 90 and an A, with an average of 90 and an A. Please tell me what you graded each film in the comments, as I genuinely want to know. A big thank you to Sid for sloughing on over to spill the tea about Winter Soldier. I'm super thankful to my good buddy Charlie Harold of Charlie's Chicks and Southern Lighting and Grip for scoring Babe 2, and I can confirm the force is strong with Abby White, who tied my score for The Empire Strikes Back. Join us next time on episode 21, Man vs. Themselves. Dancer and friend Emily Poley pirouettes to the jungle to review Black Swan. Jimmy the Ducan follows with his score of Me, Myself, and Irene. And from MMAfighting.com, Jose Young debuts Degrade Fight Club. Thanks to the team at Real Digital for producing this episode, and Platinum Plastic, who supplies all our show's merchandise on redbubble.com. If you haven't left a like by now, you might as well, and subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the bell icon to be notified when Real Talk drops each week. Thanks for listening, and if you're gonna talk movies, make sure it's Real Talk.
Sir, we have a priority signal from the Star Destroyer Avenger.
Right. There will be a substantial reward for the one who finds the Millennium Falcon. You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them alive. No disintegrations.
As you wish.